One thing I want to bring up, anybody who's in research, reading books and so forth, should not just take a book and read it and not understand when it was written, who wrote it, and why. And in that case, I want to introduce who I am. I grew up in Seattle as a Roman Catholic. I'm a Siciliano, and so I grew up in an Italian, huge Catholic church. I was the first male born of the family line out of 6 women. Yeah, one was my mother, but 6 women. And I'm the first one to graduate college. The college I went to was a Benedictine monastery college. Now, I was not in the monastery, but I was a layperson. I got my master's at Pacific Lutheran University. The point I'm trying to make is I have a very Christian background. Currently, my wife and I are very active in the Episcopal Church. We have 4 daughters, 6 grandkids, who are now teenagers and running the poopy out of me. So be aware of who writes the material you are researching. One real quick example, there's a book that's rated very highly on Amazon about ancient Masonic traditions. You read it and you'll find out that we have temples under the Antarctic ice, that we did this, we did that. Well, he was an Englishman who wrote during the time that England was conquering everybody. Everyone knows we don't have temples under the Antarctic, but under the Arctic. So, I mean, it's just be aware. Okay, the topic tonight is the magic number 3. Today, following this talk, one of the most important ceremonies of Freemasonry will be held, and that is the installation of officers. This in itself is not particularly important, except that it offers a hopeful assurance that one of Freemason's roles in the world of esoteric studies and traditions, that is, the ritual installation and initiation, will be continued. Freemasonry is the link between the past, the present, and the future. The rite of initiation is an integral part of this link in that it formally, in a physical world, links the new members with a long line of fellow Masons. And secondly, it opens the door to a deeper understanding, not only of who the person is, but also the secret world of symbols, letters, numbers that Freemasonry offers in its rites and degrees. One of these numbers is the number 3. Lao Wu Zu, pardon my pronunciations, also known as Tai Shing Ha Lu Wong. Did I get it partially right? Yeah. They won't know the difference, right? Who was the founder of Taoism, which happened around the 6th and the 4th century BCE, stated, Tao, meaning God, produced 1. 1 produced 2. 2 produced 3. And 3 produced everything else. The concept of 3 is very important to us even today. Masonically, it is an interactive part of our fraternity. I assume everybody in this room knows about our blue lodges, that we have, the number 3 is very important. We have 3 degrees, 3 knocks, 3 pillars, wisdom, strength, and beauty, 3 principal officers, and so on and so forth. But why 3? It is seen as a sacred and fundamental number to our order, but why? It's not just our order that keeps this number 3 as being important. It's also an integral part of our today's theology, our culture, our descriptions of life, such as birth, life, death, and the myths of our creation, birth, life, and of the human mind. It also is the basis of many myths, such as the triple goddess of Maiden, Mother, and Crone, and the 3 bodies of consciousness, the mind, body, and soul. The Holy Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But why 3? It seems to be ingrained in everything we touch. Perhaps there are some clues given to us by the divine. who said to have created our whole existence in an ancient document around 1400 BCE. This document was known as the Old Testament. And in this Old Testament, we again, once more, encounter the number 3. Perhaps the divine gave us some hints. The first book of the Old Testament is a well-known but yet misunderstood Judeo-Christian tradition that describes creation. It states that the Word was God, who was a creative energy through whom all the universe was made. The phrase, God said, or in Hebrew, Beshet, or more specifically, Beshet bar Elohim, which means, in the beginning, God created, refers to God's creating the world out of nothing. It's not in a form of, it's the form of a verb. The word is word of action, and the concept of creating is implied by the Hebrew word bara. The word itself demonstrates the power of God's word to create, not from a blink of the eye, but the vibration of a sound, the word. A nice myth that looks, a nice myth, but let's look using the concept of 3 in the first phrase. The number 1 is creation. First is nothing, then a word, a noise, a voice, a sound, a vibration. Second is the number 2. The sound must produce a resonance that spans a range, high, low, soft, loud, or otherwise it's just a noise. And finally, the correct articulation, the third and audible aspect of that sound. The correct sound is the key. If one does not correctly articulate the name of anything, one cannot control it, as reflected in the ancient esoteric traditions about controlling an object. You control an object by knowing its true name. The root is in the belief that that thing's true name holds the fundamental essence of power. To know and speak the name is to gain absolute authority over the object, allowing one to command, alter, or even destroy it as though you were a god. As we dig deeper, we see the 3 is deeply ingrained in our very DNA. The number 3 is our very DNA and refers to the 3' end of DNA strand, which is a hydroxyl group attached to the 3rd carbon atom of the deoxyribose or sugar. This 3rd end is crucial for DNA synthesis. As the enzyme DNA polymerizes, it adds new nuclei to the location, extending the strand. So the number 3 is key even in our way of creating life. In Western thought, the number 3 has had significant meaning since the earliest of times. In the northern climes, ancient people noted that there were days when midsummer sun seemed to stand still, and its radiance was very weak. From this astrological event, many myths were created about the gods and goddesses descending into the underworld. In an example, the Greeks used this solar event to explain Orpheus's descent into Pluto's realm. The point is that the number 3 is again present. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs are credited for using triads, groups of 3 deities, for both royal and religious purposes. The first mythical triad is in ancient Egyptian religion, consists of the creator of the god Khufu, also identified as Atum, and the deities he gave birth to, Shu and Tefnut. These primordial trinity is believed to be as old as worship of the Egyptian gods themselves. One legend is that the king Mikau Ru, who lived about 3,000 years BCE, assigned 1 male, 1 female, and 1 offspring deity to each of his 10 provinces. They were thought to provide protection, fertility, and a good harvest for the people he ruled. Note the 3 parts: protection, or a continuation of life; fertility, bringing new life into the world; and a good harvest, the offspring of the union. This is a simple explanation. Another is examining the very essence of the 3 Abrahamic religion: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, which form much of the Western thought patterns. Think past the Trinity, the 3 wise men, the 3 sects of Islam, Sunni and Shia and Sufi, and that there are 3 primary gods also in Hinduism, or even the harmony of oppositions, 2 opposites forcing, merging, and producing something else, something greater than the 2. The number 3 is a very symbolic number. It represents as well the color purple, azure, the metal tin, and the planet Jupiter. Why is this important? If one studies alchemy, it too is a language of symbols, and one wants to explain something beyond what they have, they use symbols to explain it, because it's also secret. This is also part of initiation, and the principal form of when you take an initiate, you give him a symbol, and it contains as part of him. It is the 3 that represents the process of thought, speech, and action. In many esoteric groups, this occurs through altering the initiate's perspective of how things used to be to what they should be, and finally what they could be. In most rituals, whether it's baptism, fraternal initiations, or Masonic rites, the same principle applies. Stripping or washing away the old to make room for the potential to what could be and what should be. This involves using vibratory energy to transform their old world into a new one, and finally putting into action what they had learned, replacing the old with something new. The concept of 3 has been important from the beginning of humanity's development of the relationship with the gods and of creation. Archaeologists found evidence of a symbol 3 in the form of the trident. Did you put the wrong trident up there again? Sorry, I tried to keep it out of there, but I'm sorry. The trident, the actual trident, is approximately 5,000 years old, and it was developed in the Ukraine. Yes, it may not have been considered terms of modern esoteric thought, but it's been around for a very long time. As Egyptian civilization developed, many other divine triads emerged, particularly family-based groupings such as father, mother, and child, associated with the major occult centers throughout the country. These latter localized triads often eclipsed the early creation triads in popular worship. Some examples. The Orpheus triad, Osiris, Iris, and their son Horus. This family unit represented the idea of succession, death, and resurrection. The Memphite triad, the creator god Path and his consort Sekhmet, and their son Nephet. And the Theban triad, which is Amun and his consort Mut, and their son Khonsu. This triad is prominent during the New Kingdom when Thebes became the center of Egyptian culture. Later, added to the number 3, becoming significant, additional, I should say, to it, was Pythagoras. You all guys know Pythagoras, right? When I was in school with him, he was a pretty good guy. He refers to when he called the number of elements, the elements of all beings. And the universe as a whole was composed of harmony of these numbers. The number 3 symbolized creation, communication, and the creative expression. He also proposed that the three, or the triad, was the bridge between dualism of the two extremes, forming one of the key doctrines, harmonia, or the oneness of mind, perfection, and the peace of creation. Pythagoras is often associated with the phrase, 3 is the perfect number. He did not identify the number 3 as the number 3 itself as a perfect number in the mathematical sense of being equal to the sum of parts. Instead, he and his followers considered 3 a perfect number due to its symbolic significance, representing completeness, beginning, middle, and end, which was the harmony of the universe. Let's go back even further to one of the oldest alphabets still in use in the West, Hebrew, an offshoot of the Sumerian alphabet. It is a symbolic alphabet, similar to Egyptian hieroglyphs, and that each letter can have multiple meanings depending on the culture, the time, and the context. That is very important to remember as Masons when you're studying. The importance is somewhat, it is to remember because time progresses, and as time progresses, things change. Also, the Gentiles, or outsiders, were fascinated with this idea that Hebrew was the language of creation. Like many symbolic alphabets, especially ancient ones, the letters also represented numbers. Some of these symbolic alphabets include Aramaic, Hebrew, Arab, Greek, and ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Basically what I'm saying, most of these languages did not have numerical numbers. Everything was determined by a letter. Thus, the craft of using numbers to hide letters and letters to hide numbers has been around for a long time. Fortunately, or unfortunately, these symbolic alphabets can be interpreted differently over time and across cultures. These symbolic alphabets can be interpreted differently because of our culture that we sit in today. Hieroglyphs and hand signs, such as American Sign Language, are excellent examples of this. The sign for tree, are you showing the sign for tree? Is that up there? Yeah. Good. I can't see behind me. But what kind of tree? One must note that these are symbols and are not exact words. They describe treeness. So the sign language for treeness is this. That makes a difference. It depends where you grew up. It could mean a palm tree, or it could mean a cedar tree. Again, depending where you grew up and the culture you're in. This is not a talk on the actual alphabet, but does relate to the number 3 and its symbolic potential. In Kabbalistic doctrine, the number 3 represents divine fullness, perfection, creation, and the reconciliation of opposites. It is represented symbolically by the triangle. The triangle represents the divine essence of creation. It signifies fire and the heavenly powers, or Shiva, who personified fire. When it points downward, it indicates water, below, or the Hindu god Vishnu, or the personification of the liquid water itself. This relates back to the first verses of Genesis, Reshet bara Elohim. Using today's scientific mind, one would assume the first letter of creation would be the first letter of the alphabet, Hebrew alphabet. But according to creation myth, it was not Aleph, which is the first letter, but Beth that started the creation process. This is because creation both began with the word. However, the word did not start with the first Hebrew letter, Aleph. It started with the second letter, Beth. One must realize that like all ancient cultures, their works have had a long time to be pondered and altered by modern minds. An example is the Zohar, also known as the Book of Splendor, which describes about the 10 divine Sephirah and the 22 Hebrew letters. Originally, it was about 2,000 words. Now, it's at least 22 volumes for official, plus hundreds of additional books that tell us how to understand it. Let us dig a little deeper. From the earliest of times, Jewish scholars and rabbis pondered the question, if Aleph was the first letter, why did God use the second letter to start creation? Several reasons have been given. The primary one that we need to consider is that Beth, which has a numerical value of 2. The whole concept of creation is that there has to be a contrast or difference between what is and what can be. So Elohim, which is the creative God, created the world in 2s. Night and day, water and dry land, man and woman, and so forth, heaven and earth, like. Heaven and earth. So we developed everything in groups of 2. However, to give a newly created world dimension, it needs not just a sense of closeness and distance, but also the sense of depth. This is the third measurable component and the basis of the carbon-based world. Now we have birth, life, and death. We have height, width, depth. We have length, breadth, and height, and so forth. Another way to think of it is, remember the old cartoons when we grew up were all one-dimensional on television? Compare them there that we used to see with today's cartoons. Adding one additional dimension makes a big difference. However, before we leave Aleph, which reflects unity or oneness, more specifically the oneness of God, we need to take a deeper look. Though it's not presented in the world as the letter of creation, it does hold some secrets. It is the only Hebrew letter facing to the right. This oddity is reflected in Exodus 33:20, where God told Moses, "You cannot see my face. You can only see my back." This applies to the other 21 letters. They cannot look directly into the fullness of God's glory. Thus, like Moses, the rest of the letters face away, exposed only to God's back. But there are even deeper things to look at. Remember, blinds were used to hide something from those who were not initiated and thus not prepared for the new truth. Remember that term, the new truth. Though Aleph has a numerical value of 1, it's made up of 3 other Hebrew letters. Once more, the perfect number 3 is revealed. And in this case, Aleph comprises 2 yods, one on the upper right and one on the lower right, and the Va joining the 2 together. This is important to linguistics and those who believe that there is more to every story than what meets the eye. The top yod represents the divine name of God, Yod-He, Vah-He, which in English is translated to Lord or Jehovah. The second yod represents Yoshel of Israel, which is the center letter. Vav represents the connection between the top yod and the bottom yod, connecting the tribe of Israel with the one God by use of the Torah. The point is that if you belong to a group or order that deals with more profound, more esoteric meanings, do not just accept one person's view of a subject. Dig deeper. There are often multiple meanings to the profound works of the masters. Or sometimes a duck's just a duck. You need to research and dig deeper. Returning to the number 3, in the Pythagorean philosophy, it was considered perfect because it represented the beginning, middle, and end. The number 3 is the process of creation. Just like 3 degrees or 3 initiations in Freemasonry are the process of creation. That is, to create a new man. In the world of symbolism and mythology, the triangle has been used to hold many secrets. I assume you are familiar with the 4 elements and the 4 elemental triangles. When viewed in various texts, they're often acknowledged, but not really seen. The first and primary triangle is the fire triangle. It corresponds to the east and the spring season, or to new ideas. Remember the phrase, look to the east? Why the east? One theory is that the knowledge of man was held by the eastern tribes, where in the west, due to politics, we lost a lot of our knowledge. The other is, east tribe, or that there was also the first rays of light came from the east. It is said it affected the blood, humidity, and heat. The sun is the first ruler and rules the day, and Jupiter rules the night. There's more, but we really don't have enough time to go into the details. The second triangle, air, corresponds to the south in summer. It affects our hot and dry, influencing bile and anger. Saturn is the ruler of the day, and Mercury is the ruler of the night. The third triangle is water, corresponding to the west and autumn seasons. This triangle is associated with melancholy and characterized by cold, dry qualities. Venus is the ruler of the day, followed by Mars. The fourth triangle is the earth triangle. It corresponds to the north and winter. It influences individuals to progress slowly, calmly, maintaining balance in their lives. It is associated with cold, humid weather, and is ruled by Venus during the day and the moon at night. The point is that a symbol represents many, many different things, not just the obvious. In Hinduism, the Hindu word Trishula, or trident, is closely associated with the god Shiva and represents the concept of creation, preservation, and destruction. Again, the number 3. As Western scholarships developed, the concept of the triad evolved in a Christianized form. It is viewed in the more spiritual context as a sacred grouping of 3 interconnected entities, qualities, or aspects that represent the wholeness of the creative energy. The meaning varies across traditions, but the concept of God is often described as one being in 3 divine persons, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The idea of spiritual identities is not limited to the Abrahamic religions, but extends across multiple cultures. The Buddhists have the 3 Jim, which Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and the Hindus have the concept of self, being, and world. The number 3 is often associated with balance and a complete fundamental unit, as in the balance of spirit, mind, and body. In many Masonic edifices, one will find the triangle with a yod in the center. Kircher stated that symbol represented the 3 principal attributes to 3 becoming the form of all. Again, if one digs deeper, one will find a further explanation. Kircher stated that the first attribute, time, symbolizes eternity, time, and time is divided into 3 parts: the past, the present, and future. The second is space, which represents infinity, divided into longitude and latitude, symbolized by the cross. The third is matter, which is divided and subdivided to infinity by the perpetual and universal aspect of movement, symbol of the eternal spirit, which is the world's soul, or Holy Spirit. It is said that everything passes through the mystical triangle, through which everything grows, is destroyed, and hopefully reproduce itself again in a higher form. This is not an easy concept to digest. Akape, a German Renaissance scholar, considered a similar idea when he suggested all men had 3 guardian angels, or genies, assigned to them. The first is sacred and derives its power from God, being assigned to the soul at the very time of creation. It is a universal spirit and above the influence of nature, and acts to direct the soul through life using divine light. This is reflected in the Gospel of St. John. The light of the world, which lighteth all men, hath cometh into the world. The second emanates from the astrological world. That's from the power of the stars. It is said to influence morality and speech. The third is the elemental world, which governs the physical body and the influence of the person's health, movement, and actions. Of course, there is the Christian Trinity. Numerous books have been written on the religious components. However, if we continue down that path that's taken, another idea emerges. It is based on the concept of 3 dimensions. In this case, the opposites of Father and Son are balanced by the Spirit. It is the idea or path that one must balance oneself to reach perfection. Another way to look at the return is to return again to my favorite topic, the Kabbalah. The number 3 represents the spheres of intellect, as well as the planetary lords of the triplicities. One way is to view the 10th Sephira as 4 triangles. Before creation, there was the first, Ayin Sophar, or the limitless eternal light, and the second, Ayin Sophia, the no thing, and the limitless being, and the top beyond, Ayin, or nothingness, non-existence. 3 creative triads represent creation. They are covered in more depth in the books I have for sale in the back. A little plug myself there. And you can explore them as they relate to the tree of life. In the Kabbalah, 3 pyramids or triads of the tree of life represents 3 distinct groups of Sephira, or divine emanations. The right pillar is Gubura, which is severity, judgment, and the left pillar is Chesed, which is mercy and grace, and the middle pillar is Tipreth. These pillars form the fundamental structure of the tree of life, which maps the descent of divine energy into the manifested world and the path to spiritual reunion. As one studies these attributes, they represent the number 3. There are 2 alternatives with a 3rd answer. This one is important because it relates to initiation, a key component of any esoteric group. It is the concept that emphasizes all initiations. The initiate enters the rite by their choice. That's number 1. Their state of mind of choice is number 2. No matter what happens, they are changed, which is number 3. This process is exemplified in Masonic initiations, as is the tree of life and the pillars. In a Masonic lodge, the right pillar, or the pillar of severity and judgment, is on the junior warden side. And this follows one of the junior warden's duties, acting on lodge issues. This pillar consists of the Sephira associated with power, judgment, and restraint. The Sephira called Gubura is severity and power, represents divine judgment, strength with limitation, the active, powerful aspect of the psyche. The left pillar, pillar of mercy and grace, is on the side of the chaplain. This pillar embodies aspects of divine mercy, compassion, and expansion. See the similarity here? The sphere called chesed, mercy, and grace resides where it resides. It represents divine kindness, love, and expansive quality of the personality. The middle pillar, the pillar of equilibrium, of beauty, is Tiphareth. This pillar serves as a balance between the severity of the right and the mercy of the left. This is a balance which represents harmony of the lodge, which is one of the duties of the Masonic worshipful master. Tiphareth, or beauty, represents this harmony, balance, and compassion, acting as a central hub of connection for the other sephira. These three pillars work together to create a balanced path for spiritual growth, allowing one to navigate the complexities of the manifested world and the attaining of union with the divine. These attributes are represented in the image attributed to Albert Pike. This image, which I believe is behind me, can be found in his books, but as far as I've been able to determine, there is no explanation. But it is the process of initiation and the world of harmony. To summarize, I know you guys were waiting for that, Masonry, along with many of our sister and brother organizations, including the Theosophical Society, the Golden Dawn, the Builders of the Addendum, offer insights into the higher levels of study. When combined with astrology, alchemy, and the analysis of the tarot, now I'm not referring to fortune telling, but to the aspect of a book of wisdom, all can help us see the world of the new truths that we live in. As a Mason, I have learned many valuable lessons that have profoundly changed my life and the perspective I see the world. As followers of enlightenment, we need to dig deeper into all the symbols and allegories presented to us, not just the one in our degrees and rites, but it's also check into the vast archives at our disposal. Ideas I presented are only one path along discussing the symbolic language. As Freemasons, we have incorporated into our lodges many of these ideas. If what I have said perked interest in you, do not stop at what you heard today. Dig deeper, but always consider your sources. Thank you. I'm supposed to ask any questions, make them simple. Oh, you're in the back, yes.
Very good presentation. That was a very interesting piece on with that, and it also goes a little bit. I'll be reading the code tonight.
Oh, okay.
So I will be building off of you. Thank you for giving me an introduction into that. But a couple of things. First off, if we look at ourselves in the mirror, we do not see anything with threes. So we can't pick that up from looking at a mirror. You can't pick it up from looking even at a plate of water if you go back far enough and they didn't have mirrors. And in fact, on an NPR show tonight, they were talking about the physiological program about some other things, and one of the things they came up with was one of their kids, or the producers, actually said, what on the human body comes in threes? And nobody could think of anything. They had some serious stretches, like we have two eyes and maybe a pineal gland that might have been an eyeball once upon a time. And of course, mothers always seem to have eyeballs in the back of their head. That's the other thing. But as a normal function, there really isn't anything there. So this idea of the threes did not come from what we would say talking to ourselves, looking at ourselves on that's an interesting thing. But something you brought up about the DNA piece in through there, that in order for a DNA to be able to transcript into a protein, you need a codon of 3 DNA bases, as we would call them. And if you do that, there's 4 common DNA bases, so 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. There's actually 24 common amino acids. And yes, I know I'm telling you where I did what I do for a living.
Yes.
But bottom line is that covers, there are some codons that don't really mean anything. There are some codons that might mean the same thing as another codon. But bottom line is that your three-mer coming up from that kind of thing sort of fits in with another place that, at least biologically, we do have something that comes in threes. But again, that was an interesting little piece in on that, where all you were able to draw that out of. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And the most important thing to remember is we in this room deal a lot with the physical. But part of the major aspect of the path of enlightenment does not always deal in the physical. It's the spiritual level that we're dealing with. And that's the thing. You have to dig deeper into what is around you. Do not accept the basics. Even, I guess most of us all have been through it, even what we're told in Lodge. Listen to the words. Listen to the numbers mentioned. They mean more than what is spoken. But it's up to us as individuals to look deeper. I can almost guarantee every man in this room, when they became a Mason, is much different today, because initiation's part of it. Now, it may take some of us longer than others, but that's the path we chose. But when I went into looking on the number 3, I did not realize how it interplays throughout all the different cultures and things like that. But I hope you enjoyed it. As Edwin said, I do have several books in the back. There's a book on the Kabbalah. There's a book on the Tree of Life. And that concept, the Tree of Life, is in almost every esoteric group in some form or another. And then there's also a book on creation, 3 to 1. So, and I guess there's another book on Rosicrucian symbolism in the Lodge. But again, I hope you enjoyed it, and I appreciate you coming out tonight. And anything else I'm supposed to do? Sing, dance, or whatever? Don't want to sing. Thank you. Oh, got another question?
I do have a question. When you were showing the 3 columns and the one on our left, you referred to as right, whereas the white column you called left. I know that's facing out. You didn't explain that during that, and there's
Sorry.
might have been 1 or 2 persons here that was going,
Gubura is the one on the junior warden side, and then Chesed, which is love, is on the chaplain side. But another little curiosity is Freemasonry did not have chaplains, a chair for the chaplain originally. So it's just interesting how in time things are changed, you know. Yes, sir.
Since, you know, 3 is like multiplicity, right? Bereshit, Bara, Elohim. Elohim is plural, is it not?
It's the creative. In Judaic descriptions, there are 72 names of God. Now, we only have a noun. We don't even have a name for God in the Christian religion. And Elohim is an essence. It's not a single part of a thing. It's an essence, which means more than just a beard. It's the person. So in understanding this, we have to interpret between the Hebrew and English and so forth. But this Elohim is an aspect, a creative aspect. And creative aspect, as described, you've got to have 2, because 1 is nothing, 2 is something. So that brings in that aspect of duality in the very essence of divineness. You notice I do not use the word God. Again, Christianity is, I believe, the only religion that doesn't put a name to God. And it's sort of like saying, you know, a father, no, you're a man. No, you have to describe more. It's a description of many essences of the same thing. So.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
This is sort of half-baked. I'm still sort of like working this through, but I want to kind of bounce it off you as a preliminary idea. One of the things I was doing during your talk was sort of categorizing the different types of triplicates. And I came up with 3, oddly enough. I want to get your initial impression.
Do I have to pay you for that?
Okay, so the first one is kind of like for the Kabbalah and the True Life, a duality with a balance in the middle. And a lot of the symbols that you presented kind of fell within that category. The other triplicates were kind of a progression, like birth, life, death, creation, sustaining, destruction. The third, I'm still kind of like working on it. It seems to be 3 different but equal components. And I'm a little hazy on this, but I'm kind of thinking that the Christian Trinity would fall into that, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Is that a fair representative of the different categories of triplicates, or am I missing anything?
I think the first 2 were, but I think the third would be you have to consider it on a spiritual level. And that's somewhat a little different than the physical and the creative physical things. One thing you'll see in some of the books I'm writing now even is humanity, sorry. AI always corrects me in my spell, and it's telling me there's no such thing as mankind anymore. Humanity always has developed everything with limitations. And part of understanding some of this stuff is you've got to break down that barrier of limitation. Humanity, from the very beginning, started modifying and changing things and limiting them so they can mentally figure it out. Our whole thing in the path of enlightenment, as you progress up the tree, is getting away from that limitations. And so part of the 3 is maybe mind, spirit, soul, and those concepts. So it is. So
are you implying that there will always be some kind of hierarchy that would distinguish that?
Yes.
Okay.
There'll always be something greater than us, greater than the next thing. And that is sort of the path you lead upon. And go ahead.
We will pursue this offline.
Yeah, you and I will. Unfortunately, that's the guy who got me involved in Masonry. My wife curses him to this day. Thank you, Will. Anything else? Thank you.